Well, thanks so much, everyone. As she said, my name is Sequenzia Titus, and I'm with the International Justice Mission. So I know we've been focusing a lot on domestic issues today and making tweaks to the systems that we have in the United States that are meant to protect us, and they do for the most part. But what I'm here to do is expand our view and take it a little bit out of our comfort zone to global issues and international affairs. So imagine if those systems that we've been trying to tweak didn't exist at all. Well, let's get started. What I'm actually here to talk to you about is my favorite topic in the whole world, and that is fashion. Yep, you guessed it, fashion. So as I was getting up this morning, I started to think about, what should I wear to talk to such an astounding group of people? And I started with my hair. What am I going to wear? Hair up, hair down, one's too serious, one's not serious enough. Should I wear a suit? Should I wear something more approachable? What about my pants? Taper leg, regular classic cut, heels, flats? Oh my gosh, the options just go on and on. So what you ended up with here is what you see. Well, what I'm telling you with my outfit is that I'm relevant. I have Pinterest hair, right? And most importantly, a suit. A suit that tells you that I am here to represent our clients and staff in the most professional way possible. We believe that they deserve our best, and so that's what we're going to give them. I know what you're thinking. What does this former congressional staffer, lobbyist know about international human rights? Well, let me unpack it for you a little bit. So at IJM, we've come to be known for our suits. So much so that we actually have a social media campaign called Behind the Suits. So what we do in this campaign is tell the story of some of our staffers. Most of our staff in the office have had successful careers in other fields and then brought those skills over to the international human rights space at IJM. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my friend and colleague, Mark Kluge.
All right, who's got the questions? I was a very temporary actor on the NCIS LA show.
Excuse me, sir. The director would like to know if you intend to bring charges.
Tell the director that is a distinct possibility, Agent Kluge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But I was actually the director of NCIS. I was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I grew up wanting to help people. Back in high school, I joined the volunteer fire department, became an adrenaline junkie, and then realized that I could get that fixed through law enforcement. My love for the Naval Criminal Investigative Service is hard to hide. Special agents having to do the entire spectrum of felony criminal investigations, counterterrorism operations, and the counterintelligence operations. It was just an absolute blessing to be there for 31 years. As great as my career was as the director of NCIS, I felt like there was just something missing. And fortunately, I found that here at IJM. I felt right at home because my immediate staff is former law enforcement as well. I thought I'd seen pretty much the worst of the worst. But I came here to IJM and saw some stuff that really shocked me, particularly as it impacts children. But what I love about IJM is that holistic approach, rescuing the victim, but also helping the local justice system hold the criminals accountable for their criminal activity. When you realize that these helpless victims have no other alternative, we're there for them to help these children who otherwise have no hope. That's what keeps us going. And I think that's the beauty of IJM.
Impactful, right? Men, you're paying attention now, aren't you? Well, I gotta tell you, it is so much fun to work with people like Mark. Passing him in the hallway is kind of funny though. You're like, okay, let me get to the side. Yes, sir, whatever you need. Trying not to be awkward. Oh man, it is so fun. What a great guy. As a human rights organization, we were so excited to be invited to a symposium entirely devoted on violence And so glad that you guys made that connection, and thankful to Melanie Cunningham to actually give us that invitation. So thank you so much, Melanie. Now you're probably thinking, what does this human rights organization have to do with violence? Well, I hope to unpack that for you a little bit over the next 25 minutes. So let's get back to my favorite topic of fashion. So when I'm not wearing these high-heel black stilettos in our DC headquarters office, I'm wearing these plain Croc ballet flats. Why? Because anybody who's ever been to the developing world knows that easy to clean shoes that keep your feet comfy while you're walking about 100 miles a day are great. Now I wear these on medical mission trips with my husband, who is all the way over there at the left. He is a family physician, and I have had the pleasure and joy of joining him on medical mission trips all over the world, where we spend a week, 2 weeks, sometimes more in different communities, just providing general medical care. If we're in a shelter of trafficking, then we'll bring OBGYN, sometimes dentists, ophthalmologists, pharmacists, nurses. And what I've noticed when we've dropped down in these communities is just the immense compassion that comes from nurses seeing patients minute after minute after minute, sometimes 300, sometimes up to 3,000. And it doesn't matter where you are, but every single time we land in one of these places, I'm telling you, the word gets out. There are probably 100 to 200 people lined up before we even show up for clinic, and it just keeps going like that all day. And if you haven't had a chance as a student to serve on one of these trips and see how healthcare is sometimes non-existent in other countries and cultures, it is such an eye-opener. So let me take you to the picture on the far right to some survivors that I had a chance to meet on our first trip to Nicaragua. Now these 2 girls are currently missing. We have no idea where they are. Now why is that? Because the police came in, made up a rule that the shelter wasn't allowed to have more than X number of girls at a time. They came in, they took the girls out, and they gave them to the next closest living relative. But if you know anything about trafficking, you know that the next closest living relative is probably the same person that sold them into trafficking in the first place. So like I said, this is entirely an extracurricular activity, but something that brought me up close and personal to the work and the violence that survivors face every day. So at International Justice Mission, we have deemed this violence the locust effect. So some of you, when you were at lunch out in the hallway, you saw our book, The Locust Effect. This is a little trailer that we put together to highlight sort of the topic and synopsis of the book. Check it out. So like the video says, it's hard to think about, but there's hope. There's something that we can all do. So let me introduce you to Gary Hagen, who is IJM's founder. Now, Gary is no stranger to violence himself. He actually was a lawyer with the Department of Justice and was dubbed by the UN to serve as the lead investigator in charge of the Rwandan genocide investigation. So his charge was to go in and figure out exactly what we could have done as a nation and people of compassion to help these victims of violence. So he went in, and this picture that you see on the bottom is Gary standing in one of the church buildings. And in the developing world, sometimes churches are the only buildings actually erect. So people would gather there for community events and so forth. And in this moment of immense violence, they clamored there in order to be safe. But it turns out that they weren't safe there at all. They were actually trapped, and thousands and thousands of them were murdered. So if you look there in between the pews, what looks like trash is actually human remains. And as Gary was standing there thinking about his charge as the lead investigator, it started to become clear to him that all of these valiant aid efforts that we have put together for so many years, like clean water and child sponsorships and increased agriculture and economic aid, actually never did restrain the hand of the person coming at them with a machete. And so it's at that point that the intersection between violence exists. So Gary actually had the opportunity to discuss this type of international violence on the world stage at TED last month in March. And just this past Monday, the video was released. And I think right now we're up to about 300,000 views. So you might want to go check that out, get our numbers up there. I was on the TED team, and let me tell you, it was very exciting to see it launched. So we don't have time to discuss all of the points now, but I want to take you through a few of the highlights in our remaining minutes. So first of all, violence today is the most urgent threat for millions of the poorest people. This violence is an everyday threat. According to the UN, 4 billion people live outside the protection of the law. That means that their public justice systems, their police, their courts, their laws are so broken and corrupt and dysfunctional that there is nothing to shield them from violence. So to put this in perspective, what would it be like if violent criminals in your neighborhood had no fear of being caught? What if you picked up the phone to call 911 and nobody was at the other end of the line? Now, ironically, one of our speakers this morning had just moved from Oregon. And in Gary's recent TED Talk, he played a 911 call where a lady called to get emergency assistance because somebody was about to rape her, and because of budget cuts in her area, nobody was available to come help her. And so the worst happened, and she was actually violently raped. And that is just a little aspect of what people in the developing world face every single day with violence. What's actually happening is that their police systems and their justice systems don't protect them. So for poor people throughout the developing world, this is everyday life. There are no defenses, no protections, nothing to hold back the violence. Not just the violence that makes the headlines like war or genocide, but common criminal everyday violence. So this breaks down in many different ways. It means that work isn't safe. Nearly 30 million children, women, and men are held as slaves. Now the 3 people in this picture are actually enslaved in brick factories in India. We ended up rescuing them, but this is how hundreds, if not thousands, of people in India live. They live in something called bonded labor. And what that means is that entire families who are in economic duress basically take a job in a brick factory or rice mill, and they're kind of sold a bill of goods. They are told that they'll make X number of dollars, and they'll be able to pay off their debts. But what happens is that they're never able to pay off their debt. So everything they do costs money. Like, well, you used the bathroom, that's $1, or you ate lunch today, so that's another $2. And so they're just never able to get out of that. Now on our website, we have a really cool undercover video taken by an Indian investigator who's talking to one of the Indian slave masters. And the Indian slave master in the video is like outwardly laughing, saying that, yeah, we never let them out. That's how we make products so cheaply. So check that out when you get a chance. This also means that children aren't safe. Nearly 2 million children are exploited in the commercial sex industry, and for millions more, sexual violence is a part of childhood. Instead of teaching their children to run to the police for help, parents must teach them to run from the police to stay safe. And lastly, it means that home isn't safe. So for millions of the vulnerable widows and orphans, they live in fear of being chased away from their rightful homes by more powerful neighbors. So IJM protects the poor from violence in 4 ways. We, first of all, rescue victims. Now this is one of the ways that you guys can help using your fantastic nursing skills. One of the first things that we did when we rescued 10 boy slaves from Lake Volta in Ghana was provide them medical care. Even before they landed back on water, we had life jackets on them, we were taking their vital signs, blood pressure, and so forth. What an amazing way to use your compassionate skills. Second, we bring criminals to justice. So we will use in-country lawyers that are trained in the local justice systems to protect our clients and serve them for free. We also restore survivors. Now this is another way that you can help. In our aftercare programs, we need counselors, and it's a long process of restoration. We at IJM, like I said, work with local aftercare, but I know of many organizations that actually could use help. We strengthen justice systems, and so this is just a mouthful of a word that just means we go in and help the local police and governments rid the corruption out of their systems and help protect the people that they're charged to serve. So you're probably thinking, this is all well and good, but does it actually work? So what I want to do is introduce you to Project Lantern. Now in Cebu, Philippines, over the course of 4 years, we decided to conduct a prevalence study to see if our ideas actually work. So at the end of the 4 years, we came back in and set a really lofty goal of decreasing the number of minor girls sold for sex by 20%. But we didn't actually meet our goal. What we did was exceeded it by rescuing victims alongside the local law enforcement, persecuting their perpetrators, and strengthening the justice systems. We reduced the prevalence to 20%. We actually reduced it by 79%. You know, it's a funny thing. Once you start persecuting these crimes, you find out that these criminals aren't so brave. Once you start sending them to jail, the violence stops. So right now we're working 4 different casework types. So the trendy issues that you guys have probably heard of are sex trafficking and sexual violence. But some that you might not have heard are police brutality, property grabbing, citizen rights abuse, and slavery, which is that bond labor that I was talking about earlier. So our current stats are that we've been able to relieve about 18,000 people from oppression, 13 plus officers and officials trained since 2012. And that is where governments will actually ask us to train their law enforcement agents to recognize some of these atrocities. And that's something that you can also do serving in your role here in the United States. You might be able to notice those little nuances that people aren't going to tell you about. Educate yourself on the topic. We've also been able to convict over 770 plus perpetrators. And we currently work in 18 communities. So here's a map of where we currently work. The cities listed in blue are our partner offices, and then our field offices, they're all listed in all different colors. And there are different casework types in each office. So if you go to our website, you can find out more about what's going on in each of those offices. So So I know I've thrown a lot at you today, and I want to leave you with something that might stick. So we recently did a rescue operation in Mumbai of some women that were entrapped in sexual slavery. And I want to take a minute and have you watch this video.
This is Mindy Mizell, Global Public Relations Director with International Justice Mission based in Washington, D.C., talking today with Sanjay McWan, who is the Field Office Director in Mumbai. Sanjay, thanks for joining us. It's a privilege to be able to talk to you across the other side of the world. Would love to talk to you about the rescue operation that was conducted on September 20th, 2014. I know 6 girls were rescued, and IJM went through a very thoughtful, in-depth process. What happened?
Well, on last Saturday, as you mentioned, we were able to rescue 6 girls after a rigorous rescue operation along with Mumbai police. So as we entered the police, we could not find any girl there, and we were frantically looking for these girls for nearly 45 minutes. So we kept looking, hitting at walls, trying to figure out a hollow space. Finally, after 45 minutes, we could find one spot, which we then requested the police to break open. And after a couple of minutes, as we broke that spot, there was about 2.5 feet wide little hollow space that we entered inside. And we heard girls crying inside. And we asked these girls to step out, and then they were crawling and coming out. And as they were coming out, they were just crying and they were crying. And we saw more than 2, there were 6 girls inside, and they came out. Yeah, so basically, we were very happy to rescue all 6 of them and arrest once again all those 4 traffickers who were exploiting them.
What was going through your head the moment you realized that there were really girls behind that wall?
First reaction is shock. That how could you force your girls like that? In fact, in this particular brothel, as we crawled inside that tiny little space, it opened into another big room, which was hidden from any human eye. And as we inquired, that room was used to break those girls. When I say break those girls means when the girls are brought new into this work, they refuse to do this work. So they keep them inside that room and they rape them there. And they condition them so that when they are ready, then they bring them out where they serve these customers.
Wow, it's just shocking to hear you describe this. Now, congratulations to you, the IJM team, and the Mumbai police officers, who I believe were also trained by IJM. I know so many people are going to be asking, how are the girls doing today, and how many are in care now?
Well, just to the beautiful moment, even during the rescue is this. When they were crawling out of that cavity, they were crying, and we all were like standing outside and watching them cry. Just after 10 minutes, I would say 10 minutes, they were all smiling. As we talked to them, as we counseled them, they were all smiling. Smiling because they are free. They are free, and I would like to call it this way. Perhaps the distance between tears and smile is freedom.
Sanjay, we thank you for telling us about this latest rescue operation. I know so many people, after hearing your words, are now going to want to participate in IJM's work. If you'd like to learn more information about International Justice Mission, go to the website. It's ijm.org. You can learn about how you can donate, how you can get involved with our work, and how you can pray for those who are working around the world to do just exactly what Sanjay's talking about. Sanjay McWan from Mumbai, India, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So let me just leave you with this quote. Justice is doing for others what we would want done for us. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know we're running a little over time, so let me leave you with 4 things that you can do if you feel like you want to help out. First, educate yourself. Start to learn the science so that you can discover those things here in the United States. Also, research as much as you can. Different organizations that you can get involved with. The options are endless. 2, you can advocate with us. You can serve alongside us as staff, as interns, as fellows, or you can donate to the work. Any one of these things is making an impact. So thanks so much for your time, and I'll have about 5 minutes for questions if anyone has anything.